This will be ways to prove triangles congruent. I'll be using various sections in Chapter 4. Okay, the first method will be to prove triangles congruent by SSS. So the first method is going to be side, 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 or SSS for short. All right, in this method, you want to prove 3 sides of one triangle congruent to 3 sides of another triangle. Okay, it's pretty simple. So if you look at the diagram here, based on the tick marks, we have this side, which is AB, congruent to this side, which is RS. This side, BC, matches this side, ST, and this side, AC, matches this side, RT. So all 3 sides are congruent. Now, when you make the congruent statement, you have to trace the triangles the same way on each side. So if I start at A, and I say A, B, C, okay, that's going to be A, B, C, congruent to, and I trace the other triangle the same direction, R, S, T. RST. Okay, so that would be your congruent statement. Now you can do it any way you want as long as you do both triangles the same way. All right, if you want to start at C and make it say C, A, B, then the other triangle has to go the same order, the same direction. That would be T, R, S. All right, so you can order the letters however you wish, as long as they match on both sides of the congruent symbol. So you want to trace them in the same order. Now, if one of them is crooked, I like to think of going past certain marks. For instance, here I went past 3 marks, and then I went past 1 mark. So same here, I go past 3 marks, and then I go past 1 mark. All right, next up, prove triangles congruent. We're going to use SAS and HL. So for side angle side, or SAS, the angle must be in between the 2 congruent sides. So it has to be side, angle, side in that order, as you will see. So notice in the diagram, we're going side, and then angle, and then side. Okay, the angle is in between the 2 sides that are marked congruent. All right, so these marks right here indicate the sides are congruent. These marks right here indicate that the sides are congruent. This one here and this one here indicate that the angles are congruent. So the angle has to be in the middle or in between the 2 sides. Now, if you want to name these, you have to do them the same way. So we can say T, R, S. And that's congruent to, on the other side, W, U, V. All right. And like we said before, you can do it a different way if you want, as long as you match them the same way. Okay, I can say R, T, S. And I can say U, W, V. All right, as long as they match. Now we're going to do one using right triangles, but before we get to that, labeling the sides of a right triangle, the right angle always points to the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is the longest side across from the right angle. All right, the other sides of the triangle are just called legs. So across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So next one up is hypotenuse leg, or HL. And for hypotenuse leg, it must be a right triangle. All right, we don't have a hypotenuse if we don't have a right triangle, so it must be a right triangle. So for hypotenuse leg, you only need two sides. Okay, it has to be a right triangle, but across from your right angle, in both cases, is your hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse matches the hypotenuse, and the other remaining side, the leg, matches the leg. Okay, so that's all you need for hypotenuse leg, is those two sides, hypotenuse and leg. And like we said, you just trace these the same way. They started with ABC, ABC, so the other one is going to be DEF. All right, if you want to do it a different way, you certainly can. You can say ACB, and then on the other side, you say DFE. So always trace them the same way. All right, finally in this section here, we will be using ASA, which is angle, side, angle, and AAS, angle, angle, side. So for angle, side, angle, or ASA for short, the side must be in between the two congruent angles. It has to be in that order, angle, side, angle. So you'll see that on the diagram. All right, notice on the diagram, angle, side, angle. Angle, side, angle. Okay, this angle matches this angle, and this angle here matches this angle here, and in between the two angles, the sides are congruent as well. So the side has to be in between those two angles in order to use ASA. All right, and if you name these, you can say ABC, and that's going to be congruent to DEF. All right, and you, like we said before, you can change that up and do it a different way if you want. You can say CAB and FDE. And so on. And finally, the last one is angle, angle, side, or AAS for short. Okay, and in this case, the angle is not in between the two congruent sides. So for ASA, I'm sorry, I wrote that wrong. All right, in this case, the side is not in between the angles. Okay, so it's going to be two angles and a side, but the side is not in between, as you will see. Okay, notice in the diagram, angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. See this side right here? It is not in between the two congruent angles. So really, it doesn't matter which order you go around the triangle. It doesn't matter clockwise or counterclockwise. As long as the side is not in between the two angles, you have AAS. Okay, and as always, trace them the same. You can say ACB equals DFE. ACB, not equals, I meant to say congruent to DFE, and so on. As long as you trace them in the same direction. All right, let's look at a summary. We learned 5 methods. Okay, the first was SSS. All 3 sides are congruent. The second method was SAS. 2 sides and the included angle are congruent. Okay, that just means the angle is in between the 2 sides. Like we said, SAS, the angle has to be in the middle. HL is for right triangles only. The hypotenuse and one of the legs are congruent. Okay, so it has to be a right triangle, has to be the hypotenuse, and then one other leg. So only 2 sides for HL. ASA, 2 angles and the included side are congruent. The included side has to be in between the two angles that are congruent. So notice the side is in between the two angles. And finally, AAS, the side is not in between the two angles. So two angles and a non-included side just means the side is not in between the two angles.